You won't hear the toilet flushing in the background.
You're right. Only listening. Right, we're on. Right, when you're ready to.
You got the clapperboard? No. Well, it's going now, is it?
It's going, yeah.
Okay.
You're going to start, yeah.
Well, Doug, Chris finished the last session with you passing your scholarship and winning a place at the very grand at Sir Thomas Richards Grammar School. So, do you want to tell us about your first impressions of turning up at the school on the first day?
Oh yes, I will. It was a Blue Coat school founded in 1666, but I went to first days in grammar school was quite an uplifting for me because it was so different. The masters wore gowns, and in the early days of the war they drove cars to the school, which was rather different from the old bikes I had at the junior school, masters riding, and everything was so different, you know, there were gowns and caps and all sorts of things like that.
Did you, what was your sort of the school week like? Did you have to go to school on a Saturday morning?
Yeah, we went, the school week was from Monday morning, funny old time, something like 8:52 or something like that. But and then we also worked, went to school on Saturday mornings, and in the first 2 years of whilst I was at school, you had Wednesday afternoons free. But after the second year, you had to have sports on Wednesday afternoon, so you're virtually at school from Monday morning till Saturday lunchtime.
Oh right, yeah. So what do you remember about the teachers? Did you have ones you liked?
We had several I liked. Mr. Simpson was quite nice, and the headmaster, Mr. Veal, he was a nice man. Harry West, the history master, and one or two others. Some I didn't like very much. I didn't like science anyway, so we had a master called Freddie Freeman, we called him. He took physics. I didn't like him very much. And Ike Williams was the chemistry master. Now, chemistry was one of the subjects I didn't take when I took my school certificate sort of several years later. But by and all, they were pretty good.
Pretty good teachers.
Yeah. And we had an art. The only lady then teaching was Winnie Thompson. She was the art mistress.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And what about your school reports?
Oh, school reports. You had reports at end of every term.
Yeah.
Summer term, autumn term, winter term, whatever.
Yeah. You still got them?
I still got those. They're in my bureau. Top compartment.
Yeah. And what about, did they do corporal punishment? Did it happen often?
Oh, it happened, yeah. Not very often, but remember one of my friends, Howard Lane, who lived very near me when I was living in Sydney Street, he got caught with 2 or 3 chaps. They had some very light, sexy magazines in their desks, and these were
mildly erotic.
Very mildly erotic. But so they had to make an example of these 3, so they were publicly caned, 6 each, in front of the whole school. So I don't think anybody had those magazines in their desk anymore.
No, I bet they didn't. It was quite a varied life by the sound of it at school. What would you say was your favourite subject?
My favourite subject was art. I loved art, and we did all sorts of art, mostly watercolours. I liked French. I liked oral French, and I also liked geography, which the headmaster actually took that class.
Oh right.
Because we had all separate rooms in the school. You had a geography room and an art room and a history room, and those laden down with your school satchel with the necessary books in.
Yeah, so it's different to.
There were about 3 periods in the morning, about 40 minutes, and 2 in the afternoons, about 40 minutes.
Right. That's a bit different to Minsworth then, because we're all in one room.
So why did those teachers you didn't like then, Dad? Why was that? Were they?
Well, I didn't like the subjects really. It wasn't the teachers really. But,
Yeah. You found them a bit laborious.
Yeah, but they're all competent. Well, that sort of school they would be.
We
They would
used
be
to have,
good, wouldn't
that
they?
was another thing we had when I went to grammar school. Was a break at mid-morning, about 10:30, and we used to have bottles of milk and buns brought in from a nearby confectioner.
Oh, right.
It cost about a
Oh,
penny
right.
or something.
I bet they were enjoyed.
Yeah, they were.
And years ago, you told Chris about how you protect your water bottles from other pupils when going.
Oh yeah,
doing
when
sport.
you went sports, you know, football, cricket, rugby, you took a bottle full of water. What you used to do, you used to spit in it so that nobody else would touch it except you. And that was a game. Wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was interested into sports, inducted into sports quite dramatically then, because you know I'd never wore whites for cricket or proper outfits for soccer or
Yeah.
rugby, so it was all very new.
I find it interesting that you ended up as an accountant, but you didn't mention maths, was you?
Oh yeah, I took maths.
But you didn't mention it as a favourite subject.
I don't think it was my favourite subject, but I quite like maths.
Oh, right, okay, that's good. Yeah,
Geography and geometry and maths and arithmetic.
And did you have to wear? You had to wear a school uniform all the
School
time.
uniform, every day in the year.
Yeah.
You had a cap and a tie and a blazer, and you couldn't go out without them. Even during the summer holidays, you had to wear them.
You had to wear your school uniform all the time,
Yeah, all the
and
time in the summer
was,
holidays.
even if you went to get an ice cream or something, you
You couldn't eat ice creams in the street. It wasn't allowed, you know.
you weren't allowed.
No.
All right. And how long was it before you could wear long trousers?
Oh, those days, boys, when they got to about 13, they went from shorts into long trousers.
All right. Okay. All right. So you passed your school certificate in 1944 at the age of 16. School certificate being what today's GCSE exams are. But it was structured differently, wasn't it? You didn't pass or fail individual subjects. It was all together.
You had passes in various subjects and also distinctions in various subjects and credits. But you had to pass, and you had to take about 8 subjects. Compulsory was maths and English. And if you didn't pass your maths and English, you had to take the whole damn lot again in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
But
So it was quite.
anyway, fortunately, I passed, and I got a credit in French language and also a credit in art, I think it was.
Right. Okay. Did you stay on to the sixth form?
Yeah. After I finished with the 5th form and got the school certificate behind me, you went on into the 6th, which was divided into 2 sections. There was a general section and another section. The other section were pupils who'd taken their school certificate, wanted to study for the upper school certificate, and that was a sort of an introduction to university. But I went into the general section waiting for find a job.
Right. Yeah. How did you find a job? We
Well,
know
I
you ended
know
up working for a bank.
Round about, it was end of 1945, Mr. Veal, the headmaster, got in touch with me. There's no telephone, Sammy, by letter it was, and said there was a vacancy at Barclays Bank in Gloucester for a junior clerk. Would I go and see the manager, which I did, and got the job. And I started there in January 1945.
Oh, right. Yeah. So most of your school years at Tommy Rich's, as affectionately called, actually coincided with World War II.
Oh, it did, yeah.
Or was it all of it?
The war started just before I went. I went in, I suppose, about the 2nd week in September to start, and the war started a few days earlier than that.
Right.
And the war was still on when I left school, because it went on till obviously V-Day in 1945 or VJ Day.
Right.
VJ Day in 1946. Sorry.
No, it was 45. Yeah,
45,
September 45.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are your memories of the war coming? Air raid shelters.
Well, air raid
Gas masks.
shelters, they were built all over the place. Mostly on the floor level, you know, they had concrete blocks, and there was a couple of quite big ones quite near where we lived in Sydney Street. They're in the playground of the Derby Road Technical School.
Yeah.
And there was also there's also some in the quads in the school where I was. They were built in concrete blocks. When the air raid sirens sounded, which wasn't all that often in Gloucester during the daytime anyway, we had to go into these shelters. There was also another shelter called a Morrison shelter, which was a all steel table, large table, with sort of racking outside.
Yeah.
You could see through that. Okay, so you're supposed to go in under there if the sirens went.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And where were those Morrison shells then, Dad?
Oh, you had them in your well, we had them in what we called our front room, which you called lounge these days, but yeah,
In
it was
the parlour,
an ugly
yeah.
looking thing, but you know.
So if I remember rightly, Gloucester was quite an important target for German bombers.
It was, well, a fairly important
Because
target.
the bombers were, the fighters were made locally.
Yeah, the Gloucester Aircraft Company. Before the war, my dad had jobs were scarce, and he used to go around on a bicycle with books and loan out books for twopence a week or somebody all over the place. He used to go on that bike. But one day in the week, he did the round, which was by Gloucester Aircraft Company.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
I used to go with them on my bike. I suppose I was 10ish then, and you could a road by just on the airport was you could see the Gloucester Gladiators being test piloted. You know, they'd go on
Oh right, yeah,
test
yeah.
flights. So we used to watch those. Of course, it was a target for the German bombers. They bombed it several times because they used to make Hurricanes there as well.
Right.
And the Gloucester docks were also fairly active, so they had a couple of bombers on that.
They were targeted.
Yeah.
Right. Were children evacuated from Gloucester?
Oh no, they weren't evacuated from Gloucester, but they were evacuated to Gloucester. There was a boys' grammar school in Birmingham and a girls' grammar school in Birmingham. They were sent down to Gloucester, and the boys, there were two boys' grammar schools in Gloucester, Sir Thomas Switch's and the Cripps, and they were had evacuees from Birmingham, both of them, and as did the girls' high schools. And we had from Birmingham we had a grammar school, Reginald Dixon's grammar school, and we accommodated them by all the Gloucester pupils having the school in the morning, and in the afternoon going to various church halls, and then the Reginald Dixon Grammar School, they went to church halls in the morning for their classes and village halls and that, and in the afternoon they had the school. So that's
Right.
that. We didn't really mix.
You didn't really mix up because you're different schools.
Well,
yeah,
different
areas. Yeah, yeah.
Strange, that, isn't it? Because today they probably would make an effort to mix them, so it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Keep them
Yeah.
separate. Was
Yeah.
what,
Did you ever have to wear a gas mask?
Well, we had gas masks issued in, I think it must have been 39, something like that. There was sort of ones for babies and then ones for adults, and you know.
Right. And did you ever see any German bombers in the sky?
Well, I did. Must have been about 1940. I was sat on the loo, outside loo in Sydney Street. There was a door to the loo which I had open because there was a shed in front of the loo, so nobody could see you. And I was sat there, and a German two-engine bomber went over about 2,000 feet.
Yeah.
I saw him very well with the black crosses on its wings.
Yeah.
And when we were at on a cross country, I saw bombs from a German bomber going onto Gloucester.
Yeah.
The bomber was shot down, but when I got home, a bomb had landed in the next street to where I lived.
Oh right, yeah, yeah. Okay, so
Rationing.
what about telling us a bit about our family at war? Well, Uncle Bernard, he was in the Air Force,
Oh,
wasn't
Uncle Bernard was in the RAF. He served in the RAF regiment guarding aerodromes.
he? Yeah,
And he was in the Air Force until demobbed at the end of the war.
yeah.
But he served in Lincoln and Isle of Man and North Yorkshire
Oh yeah,
and also Western-super-Mare. He finished up a flight sergeant.
that's quite a senior NCO post, isn't
Quite
it?
a senior NCO
Yeah,
position.
yeah.
And
What about Uncle Lewis?
Uncle Lewis was, he had a reserved occupation because he was delivering food to various shops and warehouses and that during the war.
Right.
Uncle Bill was, he was a carpenter by trade, but he was sent to Bristol to be, go on onto a munitions factory, turning out whatever. And then he was caught up and was in the army in the RASC
Right.
until virtually the end of the war.
Yeah. What did he finish up as?
Oh, he finished up as a private.
Oh well, yeah, yeah. But he
You weren't
saw
interested.
action.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. Well, I didn't see much action.
No, but he did his service.
Yeah.
But
Or action.
your cousin Alec,
Oh, cousin Alec, Uncle
yeah,
Fred's
he
son.
saw action, didn't he?
He saw action. He was in the Royal Navy, caught up in 1939, something like that, and he served in minesweepers for some time, and then he was made a junior officer, and went to the Prince of Wales. You know, the Prince of Wales, when it was
Oh, the ship.
the
Yeah.
battleship.
Battleship.
When
Yeah.
it was sunk in by the Japanese in Singapore. He was fortunate because he was one of the not too many who escaped, and interestingly enough, he escaped because there was a destroyer pulled up alongside the battleship that was sinking, and lots of the battleship crew managed to jump off onto this destroyer's deck. So he was saved then, and he served the most of the rest of the war in Ceylon, Sri Lanka.
All right.
And
Yeah.
then he finished up as a lieutenant commander, which is quite a highish rank in
Yeah.
the Navy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was saying, he didn't say much about it, but he said one of the worst things was you had to batten down the hatches and people were inside
Yeah.
to stop the boat sinking so quickly. So he said that was very distressing.
Yeah. I bet it was. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
His wife, Olive, was an ambulance driver in Nottingham during the war. She was all through the Blitz in Nottingham.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Mary, Alec's sister, she was a very, very good seamstress. In fact, she embroidered all the horse trappings for the coronation.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And what about
that's just before, and Alec was away for about 3 years. He didn't see Ollie for about 3
Oh, no, he
years,
didn't
wasn't
see
he?
Olive from
Yeah.
about 19,
Exactly.
until he was drowned in 1945.
Yeah, right, right. Now, Uncle Arthur, to me and Chris, he was always Uncle Arthur, and I certainly didn't know until my teens that actually he wasn't blood family, as it were.
Much later on, that is.
Yeah, yeah, but he
was a lodger with Bernard's mum,
yeah,
and he saw war in North Africa and Italy. He went through. He didn't talk about it, but he went through some pretty rough times.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, to anyone who's watching this, you just have to see the first 15 minutes of Saving Private Ryan for a taster of what it must have been like for Uncle Arthur to us, for Andy Andrews to you.
And just for the film then, so he came into the family because when Mrs. Palmier died, probably in the 1960s, he then came to live as a lodger without Auntie Elsie, his sister,
Right.
yeah, and that's how we knew him. We always knew it was Uncle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So during the war, there was rationing and queuing.
Rationing, curing.
Tell us about the rationing. What sort of things were rationed?
Small, virtually everything was rationed, including bread and eggs and food and all sorts of food and clothing. And you got very small portions of butter and cheese and sugar, your weekly rations, and about a shilling's worth of meat, which was, you know, a shilling was a shilling in those days, but it wasn't very much. And there was some relief because towards the end of the war, a lot of American bacon was shipped in. Well, this was bacon which was 99% fat. A rasher of bacon was perfectly white except for a thin pink streak in the middle. You know. And you could have some of that, but it wasn't a ration, but you were only allowed to buy so much at a time.
Right, okay. And so you remember queuing for the getting your...
Oh, queuing, ration books. And
yeah.
Rationing didn't finish until well after the war. I think it was well into the 50s before it's finally finished.
Yeah. Just going back a bit, typical meals from the 1930s, what were your favourite foods?
Well, during the war, well, we had, you know, a full range of foods. My mother wasn't a bad cook, and we had homemade faggots and all sorts of cool, delicious things. Yeah. But during the war, we were a bit limited to what we can get with the meat ration. We used to have all vegetable pies and things of that sort, and we could have rabbits. Rabbits weren't rationed, but you could get a rabbit, and we had very often had rabbit stew, which would serve for 2 or 3 meals.
Oh right, yeah.
You know, fish pies. They used to have whale meat. Forgot what it was called now, but you could buy that off the ration, and it was pretty rubbish.
Right.
And Dad, just before we go on then, because I remember in Sydney Street in the 1960s, this is my memories, but
60s.
Yeah, but during the war they took a lot of the railings away. Do you remember the railings being taken away for the war effort?
All the railings. There were small front gardens. This was a terraced house, circa 1890. All had small front gardens with iron railings at the front, and quite a reasonable, not a bad sized back garden. But when the war started, they came around and cut off the railings and took them off for the war effort.
Oh,
and
right.
we were left with no railings. A lot of people put wooden fences up, but I think we did as well. We can't remember that.
Yeah, I remember fences.
But I remember in the 60s there were still houses in Sydney Street that had the base, the stump of the railings, but they hadn't been replaced 20 years later. Yeah. That's what I brought it up. Yeah.
So staying on the theme of the streets and things like that, what do you remember about VE Day?
VE Day, that was a big celebration. There were parties in the streets. You took all the tables out and trestle tables, and then cake and what you could get, and there were big rejoicings in the town at night. The young elements used to go around setting off bonfires in the middle of the road. You know.
Oh right, yeah.
But anyway, it was good fun.
Were you one of those young elements?
No, I wasn't.
No, you're a good lad. Okay. Well, thanks, Dad. So. 16 in January 1945, just to sum up, next time we'll talk about your being called up in September 46 and going abroad for the first time. So thanks for your time, Dad.
Okay, that's fine. Any time at all.